When you turn on the news and you hear about a gruesome murder in your own backyard, did you ever think, damn, it could be somebody I know?
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Did y'all miss me? I know I was gone for a week. Listen, a chick needed a vacation, okay? Went to the Bahamas, rejuvenated, came back feeling refreshed, had lots of fun in the sun, enjoying the island breeze, although it wasn't much of a breeze because it was hot as hell. Like, if the Bahamas is any kind of inclination as to what hell is going to be like, I've got some praying to do because damn, it was hot. But I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. We did a cruise. So, me and my honey and some friends, we really got to enjoy ourselves and just really, just kind of unplug, which was much needed. But, like I told y'all, I said I would be back with a new episode, and I am giving y'all a very good one today. And it's quite lengthy because I know y'all are spoiled, okay? So, I am making sure that I am giving you guys something very good to kind of, make up for that week miss there. Now, this week's episode is a special one, and like I said, it is a bit of a lengthy one as it involves none other than the women of Imperial Avenue. Now, this may sound foreign to some of you as you may not know about what I like to call the House of Horrors, also known as 12205 Imperial Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. But if you didn't know about it before, you're definitely about to know about it now. So, like I said, again, I apologize for the delay. I hope you guys got your popcorn or snacks or whatever ready and your drinks. Tonight, I am sipping on some double XL peach wine. Whoever made this, God bless you. Baby, this wine is going to have me feeling good, okay? I'm going to be snatching up my dude later, like telling him, nigga, buckle up. Anyway, this is a bit of a doozy when it comes to this episode, so I really hope y'all are ready. I really wanted to focus on the lives and the backgrounds of these victims because, these women had a story and it was really overlooked in a lot of the documentaries that are out there and, in the headlines. And sadly, the stories just kind of diminished the women to just a few sentences. So, I figured why not tell their story? There's a lot to these women that you don't really know about and really focus on them and not just the monster, not just the murderer, not just the serial killer, but really talk about who they were and how they, got into the situation that they were in. All right, y'all ready? Let's get it. This week's episode involves Tanya Carmichael, victim, Nancy Cobbs, victim, Gladys Wade, surviving victim, Latundra Billups, surviving victim, Tashana Culver, victim, Crystal Dozier, victim, Talacia Fortson, victim, Imelda Hunter, victim, Tanya Doss, surviving victim, Lashanda Long, victim, Michelle Mason, victim, Liana Davis, surviving victim, Kim Yvette Smith, victim, Vanessa Gay, surviving victim, Diane Turner, victim, Janice Webb, victim, and Anthony Sowell, the infamous murderer. Anthony Edward Sowell was born August 19th, 1959, in Cleveland, Ohio, to Claudia Benson Garrison. He was one of seven children. Now, there's not any information on his father like that because his father pretty much, turned into Casper and dipped out once he found out that Claudia was pregnant. And where he lived, it was in a small two-bedroom household on Page Avenue. Now, like I said, his mother, Claudia, had seven kids, plus his older sister had seven kids as well. Now, at some point, his sister passed away, so his nieces and nephews ended up moving in with his siblings and his mom, and all 15 of them lived in a household together. Listen, okay, I get that back in the day, folks could do that, but damn, 15 folks in a two-bedroom? Like, I can't even visualize how the fuck did y'all sleep? Like, hell no, I would have snapped or ran away on purpose or something. Like, give me an application at the bank, honey. Let me go holler at Uncle Clifford because I can't do it. Fifteen people in a two-bedroom and you got like all of these kids running around. Hell no. Mm-mm. My uterus just jumped out the window. Nope. Absolutely not. Anywho, now, I don't know if it was because of the fact that she didn't really have a man around and was, kind of lacking some dick or what. But his mother, Claudia, was just pure fucking evil. Like, just a real piece of work. I don't know if, like, I feel like if she had some dick in her life, then maybe it would have fixed her attitude a little bit. I don't know. Like, I mean, I know, it does it for me. Dick is a wonderful thing and it will straighten you right on up. You know what I'm saying? But Claudia constantly took her frustrations out on all of the kids, like beating them all the time for every little thing. When it came to his nieces and nephews, she would whoop them with like electrical cords and whatnot. And one of his nieces in particular, Leona Davis, she caught a lot of hell. She recalled several incidents where Claudia would force her to strip naked in front of the other kids and would whoop her with these electrical cords until she bled. Like, naturally, with having that many kids in the house, there's a lot of arguments and, disciplining has to happen sometimes. But when you humiliate a child like that, you're making them strip in front of the other children and you're just diminishing them. You're, belittling them, you're berating them. And Claudia got off on that. Now, on top of that, like I said, with that many kids, there's a lot of arguments as to who's in charge and, who's the top dog amongst all of the kids. And it got to the point that the males pretty much just took over, and a lot of Anthony's female nieces were sexually molested, specifically Liana. She started getting raped at 10 years old, and majority of it came from Anthony. She was, of course, raped by other males in the house because of the fact that there were so many boys, but a lot of times she was Anthony's primary target. Even though Anthony was doing such horrific things to Liana, he was getting away with it, like literally getting off scot free. He was his mother's favorite, so he didn't get punished like the other children in the house did. Oddly enough, people described Anthony as a normal kid, which no, the fuck he was not. This nigga was out here raping his niece, so how the fuck is that normal? He was said to be very kind and respectful. He was kind of introverted and stayed to himself and, was supposedly shy. When he was in school, he attended Kirk Junior High School, and a lot of the kids would tease him because of him being so shy. And, they talked about how he didn't really have any girlfriends like that. Of course, they have no clue that he's out here raping his own niece. And I kind of figured that's why he was taking out his frustrations on her and doing what he was doing to her because of the fact that, he was getting tormented at school. And y'all want to know what the really sad thing is? Liana went to the authorities and told them what was happening to her on more than one occasion, like multiple times, but nothing was ever done. Mm, way to go, Cleveland police. Maybe if you had done your job then and put his black ass in jail from jump, he might not have done everything that he did going forward. But I'll get on that a bit later. So, Anthony at this point is pretty much feeling invincible. He's like, shit, I can do what I want to do to her. She can go to the cops. They're not going to do nothing. So, why not? Keep it going. He got everybody at school fooled. His mother lets him get away with whatever, and he's pretty much getting sexual gratification by raping his niece. But he's still getting teased in school. And then on top of that, he finally does get some pussy elsewhere because he ends up getting a girl from Shaw High School pregnant. So, much like his father, he said, all right, fuck it, I'm out. And he dipped. At the end of 1977, Anthony dropped out of high school and enlisted into the Marines. He was stationed for boot camp at Paris Island, South Carolina in January of 1978. And about 7 months later, his daughter was born back home in Cleveland. And he was all, oh, that's what's up. I'm a daddy. But he never really had any involvement in her life. Now, while he was in the Marine Corps, he was doing pretty good. He finished boot camp and then went to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. On a side note, all I could think about when I saw that he was at Camp Lejeune is those commercials asking like if you were affected by the contaminated water and all of that and them crazy ass lawsuits. I know that is like so random right now, but that was all I could think about as soon as I saw Camp Lejeune. But you know what? During that time frame that all of this happened, he was there for a 22-day combat training. So, I mean, maybe, he was, drinking some of that contaminated water. Who knows? Anyway, he was highly respected in the Marine Corps. He received a Good Conduct Medal with one service star, a Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, a certificate of commendation. He received a meritorious mask and two letters of appreciation. Like, homie had some accolades. He trained as an electrician and he ended up going to the air station Cherry Point in Havelock, North Carolina, where he spent like 5 years there. Then he got stationed to Japan for a year and was doing really great out there. And in 1981, he came back to the States and he actually fell in love and he married another Marine Corps named Kim Yvette Lawson. Now, for all intents and purposes, he was living the high life, but not for long. Even though he was doing good in the Marines, something happened that caused him to kind of slip, I guess you could say. And what that something was, no one knows. But he started drinking real heavy. And his wife Kim is like, okay, this isn't the man that I married. I don't know who the fuck you are, but I ain't with this. Like, she married a respectable man. But the man that she got was drinking and, all of that. And she couldn't take it. So in 1985, she decided that she wanted a divorce. And around this time, Anthony decided that he was done with the Marine Corps. So he moved back to East Cleveland and moved back in with his family and became a drunk. Coming back home after serving his country, the neighborhood isn't quite what Anthony remembered. While he was in the military, it used to be a middle class family kind of neighborhood, respectable, but now it's just poverty stricken. There's crack addicts everywhere and drug dealers and prostitutes, and the crime rate is like sky high. But Anthony just kind of blended in with the environment. It's the height of the crack epidemic, and Anthony didn't take long to get into it. Between 1986 and 1989, he had gotten arrested so many times for disorderly conduct, DUIs, public drunkenness, possession of narcotics. In 1988, He actually did 8 days in jail for some domestic violence. And also, around this time, women started popping up strangled in East Cleveland. Now, it was never fully proven, but in May of 1988, a 36-year-old woman by the name of Rosalind Garner was strangled to death in her home. And then on February 27th of 1989, another woman, 27-year-old Carmela Karen Prater, who lived on the same street as Anthony, was found strangled in an abandoned house on First Avenue. Now, it's not to say that he didn't get caught and that he didn't do those crimes, because he was a strong suspect, but they just didn't have enough evidence to put those on him. But to this day, people are still saying that they think he was responsible for those two deaths. Now, again, he has done some shit, okay? And eventually it does catch up to him. In 1989, he met a 21-year-old woman at this nearby motel, and she was looking for her boyfriend. And at the time, she was like 3 months pregnant. So she's looking for her boyfriend, and he tells her, "Oh yeah, your boyfriend. He waiting on you at my house. I can take you over there if you want." Now his house was a couple of blocks away from where the hotel was, so she believed him. She follows him to his house, and of course, her boyfriend isn't there. But as soon as she gets inside, Anthony starts attacking her. He's choking her, he rapes her, and then he ties her hands and her feet with a necktie and a leather belt. And she's just laying there crying and praying, "God, please don't let anything happen to my baby. Please don't let him hurt my baby." Anthony is raping her over and over, and he takes a break and then starts drinking like real heavy. He gets so drunk that he ends up passing out. Thank God, because the woman was able to escape and she ran straight to the police. And she tells them, "He choked me real hard because my body was tingling. I thought I was gonna die." He gets indicted, but he doesn't go to court. So an arrest warrant was issued for him. But Anthony knew that, he needed to disappear. Like, he literally did just that. He was gone for months. Nobody could locate him. But then, all of a sudden, another woman comes forward with a similar situation. And she says that she went to go to Anthony's house and that, they had a few drinks and everything. And then all of a sudden, Anthony just grabs her by her throat and he starts choking her. And he's cursing her out. "You bitch, you filthy whore," calling her all kind of names and telling her, "I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna fucking rape your ass." And he does. He drags her upstairs and he rapes her. He literally sexually assaulted her for hours. He forced her to give him oral. He raped her anally. Then he starts drinking and drinking and drinking, and he passes the fuck out once more. And she ran, baby. She runs and she gets the police and she brings them back to the house. Like, "No, y'all are going to get him right now." His ass is still passed out, and they arrest him and bring him into jail, and he is officially charged. In 1990, Anthony goes to trial for both this rape and the one that he ran out on where they had put the warrant out for him. And he pleaded guilty and he accepted a sentence of 5 to 15 years at the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections in Lorain, Ohio. Now, while he was in prison, he was, I guess, doing okay. I guess you can say that the prison system was actually teaching rehabilitation and reforming his ass. He decided to join Alcoholics Anonymous so that he could get sober. He tried to sign up for this program that dealt with sexual obsessions, but they wouldn't let him in because this fool refused to admit that he, was a sexual offender, which he very much was, obviously. So clearly not too much reform because he couldn't face his demons. But while he was in prison, just like in the Marine Corps, everybody said he was a model stand up citizen. But is there such a thing in prison? Like, I mean, really? In the whole point of prison is for you to change and be better? So, stand up citizen or doing what the hell you're supposed to do? But okay. He went to different anger management programs. He worked in the prison as an electrician. He even got his high school diploma. But even though he had good behavior, nigga was very much still in prison, was very much still a rapist. Like every time he went up for parole, they were like, nope, not having it. You raped two women that we know of, and we think you choked these two other chicks, so nah. He ended up having to do the full 15 years of his sentence, and on June 20th, 2005, he was released at the age of 45 years old. Damn, if that sentence was just longer, if they could have kept him in prison. So Anthony's now 45 when he gets out and on the streets. He goes back to East Cleveland because, well, that's all he knows. And he rents a room in the house of his father's widow, Sojourner Sowell. Now, this house is at 12205 Imperial Avenue, which would become the House of Horrors. Now, the house was next door to Ray's sausage shop where they processed fresh meat and, all of that. Like, y'all can pretty much guess it was a little ripe at time, a little funky. Whew, I can just imagine smelling swine in the summertime. Hell no. Ugh. So when Anthony, initially moved in, he was like, you know what? I got an idea. I'm gonna turn this house into a rehab place for some of these prostitutes and crackheads out here. Yep, that's literally like for real what he wanted to do. He wanted to help the crack addicts and prostitutes in the area to try to get clean. And surprisingly, there were some that he actually did help. Four women later testified in his trial that he provided them with shelter and food and even clothes. He even got into a new relationship. He started dating this girl, Lori Frazier, who admittedly was a crackhead. She was also the niece of the mayor of Cleveland at the time, Frank Jackson. So I guess you could say she had a little bit of, status behind her name. Now, around 2005, Lori and Anthony got very serious, and Lori ended up moving into the house with Anthony. They had a, real deep relationship, but Lori started noticing certain things when she was with him. For one, the smell in the house. Like it was strong, it was pungent, like just funky, y'all. The house wasn't necessarily the cleanest. So, Lori figured maybe that's what it was because Anthony was like so fucking messy and he had beer cans and shit everywhere and mold and funk. So she kind of like left it alone. Anthony had gotten himself a job working as a molder at Custom Rubber Core. And Lori, she's being the loving girlfriend. So you would think that things were going good for the two of them. He's got a job, everything is going great until July 2007. Custom Rubber Corp fires Anthony after he failed to show up for 2 days in a row. Now, where he was and what he was doing for them 2 days is a mystery, but it spooked Lori enough that she was like, you know what? Being single ain't so bad. And then one day, she in the house and she swears that she sees a dead body wrapped in plastic in one of the rooms. So at this point, Lori is like, fuck this. Nigga, we done. I'm out, and she broke up with him and got the hell out of Dodge. Now, of course, this devastates Anthony. He loved Lori. Like, how could she leave me? I done gave her the best years of my life. Really, he had given her 2 years of his life. But she was his baby boo. Like, girl, how you gonna leave me like that? Now, many would think that this is kind of like where Anthony snapped, and this is what started his reign of terror because yet another woman has left him. And not long after he gets fired and loses his job, now his girlfriend done left him, women of Imperial Avenue started disappearing. The first being Crystal Dozier. Crystal Michelle Dozier was born July 6, 1971, in Cleveland, Ohio, to Florence Bray and Eugene Dozier. She was the second oldest to four children, where she grew up in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood in Cleveland. It was a pretty good neighborhood until several foreclosures and crime started tearing down that same neighborhood. But when it was good, so was Crystal. She loved dressing up and was one of those I can't wait till I'm grown, always, type of chicks. I get it. I totally get it. Ooh, ooh, I used to say that all the time. Ooh, wait till I get grown. Wait till I get grown. And now I'm just like, damn, I wish I could be like a kid again. But, that's how it was. And she would always, take care of her siblings. And, she was the one that was like cooking for them and helping them out all the time. She kind of took being the caretaker to heart because at the age of 13, while she attended Alexander Hamilton Junior High School, she got pregnant with her first kid. Damn. See, she had hooked up with this 17-year-old high school nigga, and sometime later, she had her first son, Anthony, no relation to Anthony the murderer, by the way. But shortly after having Anthony, she meets this guy, Antonio. He is a whole 20-year-old grown ass man fucking with a 14-year-old. She gets pregnant again, and this time she has a baby girl, Antonia. And at this point, her mother had divorced her father, and she's kind of like pissed and she's worried about all these old niggas, preying on her daughter. So she moved her family to East Cleveland, Ohio, and Crystal ends up getting enrolled at John F. Kennedy High School, so her mom is trying to get her back on track and everything, but Crystal loves her baby daddy, Antonio. And, he's in her ear, baby, I love you. These bitches out here don't do nothing for me. I want to be with you. Your mama just mad. She don't know, real love like ours. You just need to bring me my baby and come live with me so we can be a family, boo. Y'all, Antonio convinced her to run away, and she did. She went and moved in with him. And like most older men, Antonio controlled her. He manipulated her and made her think that she just absolutely needed him. He convinced her to do things under the whole, if you love me, you'll do this. And Crystal, she's petrified of him. She did whatever he told her to do, like whatever he told her. She got pregnant with their second child in 1987, and a dumb ass female judge in Cleveland ordered that they get married. This judge literally told Antonio, if you're going to keep making these kids, you're going to have to marry her. So he did. At the age of 16, Crystal got married. And I'm sorry, y'all. I can't with. Do y'all realize how many cases I've covered that involve Cleveland, Ohio? Like the justice system there. Oh, fuck. What is happening with my life? Why can't I get it together? Happily, she finally left Antonio in 1994, and she later married this man, Robert Bobby Pennington. I'd like to say he was what she needed at that time. Like, he helped her get clean, and she was doing so good. Like, for almost an entire decade, Crystal was living sober life. Big ups, round of applause, for that because she really kicked that habit. But like I said, it was almost a decade because in 2004, Crystal was sent to prison for 10 months for drug trafficking. And even though she had this setback, she would still minister to the women behind bars and try to keep them on the right path. But while she was in prison, Robert passed away. Good God. That set her over the edge. Losing your husband while you're incarcerated. And so when she was released from prison by 2006, she was, back on her habit. And this is when she crossed paths with Anthony Sowell. Now, they never really dated, but Anthony and she met when she would hang out near his house. He would give her rides sometimes, and Anthony's house was the party house for a lot of the neighborhood fiends and whatnot. So Crystal would go to his house and get high, and he would give her drugs, and they would hang out and get to know each other. I also want to point out that because of the amount of trouble Crystal had been in, she would sometimes use her sister, Annetta Bell's name, which of course got the actual Annetta into trouble because she's like, how the fuck you just using my name and got smoke coming my way? Like, she had to literally clear her name from the negative shit that it was caught up in. And she let Crystal know, you need to chill out with that. Like, you gonna have me getting locked up on your shit. No, I'm not having that. Get your shit together. Fix that shit now. You know, that's still her baby sister. She couldn't really stay mad at her too long, but she let her know how she felt. So around May of 2007, Crystal was still, doing some foul shit. And she had talked to Anita about wanting to get clean. And so she was telling her how, she missed her kids and all of that, and that she wanted them to hang out together, but not before she made a little stop. She had to go get high. So she went to hang out with Anthony and was never seen again. Her family was out there looking for her. Her sister Annetta is like, we were supposed to get up. We had to talk about this whole clearing my name thing. Where's Crystal? Where's Crystal? They're scouting the neighborhood because this is not like her. Her son Anthony ended up filing a missing persons report on June 11th, 2007. And for 2 years, her family posted flyers and everything, asking help, asking anybody, have you seen Crystal? Help us find her. Oddly enough, the flyers would just disappear. So, what happened to Crystal? Anthony Sowell. He had convinced Crystal to come over and told her that he had drugs for her and that they, should hang out. And she had been over his house before, so she didn't think anything of it, and she went over there. But she just never came out because he attacked her and strangled her to death, tossing her body in the house as if it was just an old rag, leaving her family to worry. It was about a year before things started kind of really accelerating with Anthony, and he just became this monster. He continued his reign of terror in June of 2008 when he encountered his next victim, Tashana Culver. Tashana Culver was born August 31st, 1978, at University Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, to Yvonne Williams and Sam Culver Jr. She was the oldest between her and her little sister, Irby. That's a unique name. I like that. Tashana's parents had been high school sweethearts, but their relationship didn't really last too long. And before she turned a year old, it was done with. They were done. Rumor was that her daddy Sam was a bit of a, rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. See, Sam was kind of a small time crook and had like lots and lots and lots of convictions that went back as far as 1980. And then his crimes started changing to more violent felonies that, kind of made it hard for him to be a good father. He would come around and just be in her life in and out whenever he could. His parents were pretty much the same way. I guess that's where Sam learned it from. You know, his parents didn't have too much involvement with Tashana, but when they did have her, they would spend time with her and take her to church on occasion with them. So her mother, Yvonne, had to really be the one to give her that attention that she needed, and being a mom, Yvonne was very hands on. And her mother's parents were very involved with Tashana as well. They would take her to Disney World, and they would throw these big birthday parties for her and spend the holidays together and all kind of family functions, things that you would see in a normal childhood. When she was younger, Yvonne moved her and her children to her grandmother's house and worked as a nurse's assistant for the Visiting Nurses Association. So while Yvonne was working, Tashana's grandmother, Caldonia Williams, she spoiled her grandbabies rotten. She would buy Tashana these Cabbage Patch dolls. Y'all, I don't understand why, but them dolls used to scare the fuck out of me. Them Cabbage Patch dolls was a little too creepy, okay? But Tashana would get Cabbage Patch dolls and would play with their hair and dress them up in different styles. She was a brownie scout and she even participated at the dance team at the Charles A. Mooney School of Dance. She attended John Adams High School and was very popular. Girls in the neighborhood would come and get their hair done by her. She was pretty much a jack of all trades. Like she was a boss, but she also had a little bit of a tough side to her. She would she was squabble in a heartbeat. Like she ain't had that many female friends because she was down with a lot of the boys in school. Like I know that's right. I was the same way in school. Me and the dudes, we was cool. Well, the ones that weren't picking on me. And I had a male best friend. My best friend Terrence was, me and him were thick as thieves. He was like my protector. Like that nigga was big as shit though. And he kept me from getting in trouble so many times. And if somebody did pick on me, here come Terrence. So I could definitely, relate to how Tashana was cool with the dudes. She was a little tiny person that could throw some punches. Like you nuck, she buck. And by her sophomore year of high school, she got her a little boo thing. She done softened up a little bit, got a little bit of a boyfriend. And then she gets pregnant. Now it's high school, so they don't really stay together too long because duh, it's high school. How many people actually stay in a relationship from high school? Like, really? So she has her kid, and with the help of her family, she ends up graduating from high school and she goes to cosmetology school, specifically Vogue Beauty Academy, where she gets her cosmetology license. She also followed in her mother's footsteps and began training to be a nursing assistant. And during this time, she met the love of her life, Marcus Johnson. They fell in love, and she was like, "Ooh, this is my man, my man, my man. I'm going to marry him." But she never got the chance because in 1998, a man was walking in Gordon Park and found Marcus Johnson dead from a gunshot wound to the head. He was found with a gun near his side, and the coroners ruled it a suicide. Losing Marcus devastated her, and Shanna went into depression and turned to drugs, and she also turned to men, the wrong kind of men. Oof, been there, done that. I know some of y'all listening done been in situations where y'all just started fucking with the wrong kind of nigga and you knew that he was the wrong kind of nigga, but you was still out there. Like you knew you ain't had no business with this dude. Or is it just me? Am I the only one? Like, let me know. Cause mm, whew, yeah, without saying too much on here, I've definitely been in that situation. I'll just put it that way. So, like I said, she's with the wrong kind of men, two more failed relationships and two more pregnancies. But throughout all of that, her mother and her sister were right there to help her take care of her kids. In 2000, things actually kind of took a turn for her and she found love again. She met Carl Johnson, not related to Marcus, and they had a very long lasting relationship. She met him, it was so cute. She met him while she was waiting for a bus and she tries to like bum a cigarette off of him. And she sees him and she's like, "Oh, he cute. I wonder if he gonna give me a little cigarette." And Carl is looking at her and he like, damn, she fine. So, she go over there and she asked him for a cigarette and homie was so nervous and he couldn't find any cigarettes. So he was like, well, shit, I can give you $20 in my phone number. $20 and your phone number? Shit. You giving me money and you trying to get to know me? Okay, we could do something. So they started talking, and she found out that he pretty much was just like her. Like he had a little bit of a drug problem too. They would drink together and smoke weed together, and eventually they started doing crack together. And it got to the point that Tashana started prostituting to get money for drugs. Now, as they're going through their relationship, they have 3 kids together, which gave her a total of 6 children. Jesus, fix it. My uterus just jumped out the window again. Whew, fuck. So Tashana is prostituting herself, and Carl didn't necessarily like that, but he's a junkie too. So they're both doing what they got to do. He's vocal about how he feels about it. And every time he would see her put that red lipstick on, he knew what time it was. He tells her, like, yo, I don't like the fact that you out here hooking and tricking off on these niggas. And Tashana hears him, she hears where her man is coming from. But at the same time, she's like, well, baby, I know you don't like it, but that's not stopping you from smoking the crack with the money that I get. So Carl gotta, sit there and take it. For a little while, they kind of, were doing their thing, and he was watching it knowing that he couldn't really say anything because he needed to feed his addiction too. Now, for a while, they were renting rooms and, different apartments in Cleveland. And sometimes they would live with relatives until pretty much the relative was like, all right, y'all ain't got to go home, but you got to get your crackhead asses up out of here. And eventually, they ended up moving into this apartment at Woodland Hills Park for a couple of months. And, even though stuff was a little tight for them, like I'm talking about, like they were sleeping on the floor because they didn't have any beds or furniture or anything. But they were happy because they had their own. They made the best out of it. And Tashana was turning it into a home because she wanted to be able to bring her babies back there so that they could call it a home too. She kept the house spick and span and would cook for her and her man all the time. And, she fed the homeless too. One night she made some salmon patties. Ooh, that sounds good right now. Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm having flashbacks from the cruise. Oof. Give me a good old salmon patty or some fried conch. But anyway, so she made some salmon patties, rice, and string beans or whatever. And after she made sure that her man ate, she actually fixed some plates and took them to 2 homeless men who were sleeping in a van across the street. And Carl is like, baby, what the hell? You know we ain't got no money like that to be giving out extra. Tashana, she didn't have that thought process though. Like, you know, he's what the fuck you doing giving food to somebody else? And she's like, listen, the Lord has blessed us for the day, and it's time to be a blessing to somebody else. Even though they did have it kind of rough, she always felt like it could be a lot worse. Now that tells you that she was raised right. Like I hate that she took such a dark turn, but clearly she was raised right. Now, her mom is still taking care of her kids. Tashana had somewhat of a relationship with them. Her mom would bring them to this bowling alley where Carl worked, and they would bowl together and play arcade games. Carl said that she really loved her kids and that she would talk about them all the time, but she knew she wasn't in the right state to really take care of them the way they needed to be. But when she would see them, she had the biggest smile on her face. They were her driving force. So it was no surprise that one day she decided, listen, we're going to have to get clean. I need my kids. So in 2004, she and Carl moved to Akron, Ohio, and they went to the Narcotic Anonymous meetings. Both of them got jobs at the Rubbermaid factory. Tashana even made extra money doing hair. Remember, she was a dope ass hairstylist. They would, stay sober for a while, but eventually they would get back to that habit. Okay, so remember I told you that Tashana was like a little bit of a scrapper, kind of a fighter. There was one time in 2005 that she got arrested for domestic violence because she punched Carl in the face and then tried to stab him. But, he copped up when the cops got there and was like, listen, I kind of provoked it. I ain't want her using when she was pregnant. And, she wouldn't stop. I, I, I'll call her and, I'll get it handled. And he told him flat out, like, yeah, I was mad at her because she was pregnant and I didn't want her using. So, of course, he dropped the charges. Decided to get clean in 2006, but Tashana wasn't ready to get sober. Like she wasn't ready at all. So they ended up breaking up and he moved back to Akron. Tashana ended up locked up and she gives birth to their baby in jail. Carl was, way too scared to take custody of their baby because he's still recovering from his own addiction. So one of his relatives took custody of the baby so that way it wouldn't, get lost in the system, which is a very good thing because oof, it just seems like she just could not keep her kids, like that's the really sad part, and after she got out, she did go back to her family's house in Cleveland and she was there for a little bit, but not too long because her habit was it was hard to break. It was calling her, she was walking the streets and selling her body to pay for her next high. And her family wasn't really feeling it, so they told her that she had to go because they didn't want her kids to see her like that. She would still talk to Carl and, he would try to empower her the best that he could. Valentine's Day of 2008 was the last time that Carl talked to her. They had talked about getting back together and putting their family back together. And, he was like, all right, baby, I'm going to come out to Cleveland and I'm going to meet you at Tower City and you can come back with me to Akron. I'm going to take care of you, boo. So he took a bus out there to Cleveland and went to Tower City thinking, that she was going to be there. But she never showed because she wasn't as ready as she thought she was. She had a history of disappearing and her family didn't think too much of it initially because they were like, oh, she's probably with Carl in Akron. But that definitely wasn't the case. Much like he had done with Crystal, Anthony had made Tashana his next target. Out on the streets of Cleveland, Anthony sees Tashana and he sees that, she's itching for that fix. He knows her from the neighborhood and he's seen her around before, so he lures her into the house with the promise of drugs and alcohol. And she went. She's at a point where she's needing that fix. She wasn't ready for the relationship to reconcile with Carl like she really thought she was. And the only thing that was taking away her pain was the drugs. So Anthony tells her, come with me to the crib. I got you. And she goes into that house at 12205 Imperial and she's never seen or heard from again. I want to let this be known that this entire time that all of this is going on, there is a funky ass smell coming from the house. And it had been that way for a while, remember, back when he was with Lori Frazier. But a lot of people automatically blamed it on Ray's sausage next door. And at this time, at this point, as time is going on, eventually they start looking at it and they're like, that ain't no damn sausage that smells like that. And the neighborhood starts complaining to the city. They like, hey, y'all need to get out here and check out what's going on. It's some shit. It's funky. I don't know what it is, but y'all got to come look at it. But this is a poverty stricken area. Do you really think that they were rushing to come out there? Of course not. June of 2008, Tashana Culver became another soul lost. And Anthony wasted no time getting his next victim. Just 2 months after Tashana, he meets the youngest of his victims, LaShanda Long. LaShanda Renee Long was born March 19th, 1984 in Cleveland, Ohio to Jewel Long and Jim Allen. Unfortunately, her mother Jewel was addicted to drugs and her father was very much a Casper. Like he was pretty much a fly by night kind of daddy and yeah, the weird thing is so was her mama. But Lashanda was still very much a good kid. She made good grades in school and had perfect attendance. Y'all remember the Dare Drug campaign? Yeah, she participated in that, teaching kids not to do drugs. She had gotten baptized at church and was in the children's programs. She was the perfect kid. Not only that, but she looked out for her siblings. Now, they thought she was the bossy one. Listen, ain't nothing wrong with that at all. Like, she probably had to grow up before she really wanted to so that she could be there for her siblings and provide that stability. She was their mother figure. She gave them that maternal attention that they needed. They grew up in a house on Folsom Avenue with Jim's grandmother. And even though he tried to do the best that he could, it just wasn't good enough. On one occasion in 1990, a social worker came by the house and found six kids by themselves. LaShonda was the oldest. She was 13 at that time. And Jim used to leave the kids with his mama all the time, and she ain't like that shit at all. Like, she was like, "Boy, who you think is dropping these kids off here, without notice? Who you think you is doing that shit? You don't say, 'Hey, how you doing?' Nothing. Don't bring no money. You don't bring no clothes for these kids. It just don't make no damn sense." Y'all know how them old school grandmas are. They wasn't playing that shit at all. Even though Jimmy wasn't on drugs, he wasn't doing much better than Jules, so everything was left on the grandmother. And he was always dropping them kids off over there. She was like, excuse you, nigga, I raised my kids. Don't just come drop your responsibilities off on me. And, she called the county several times and she told them, I need y'all to come get these kids because they parents ain't doing what they supposed to do. Well, clearly the county didn't listen because his mama was like, "Oh, y'all not gonna come get these kids? Okay, Lashanda, you in charge because I'm out." His mama was like, basically, this is one of the moments where she started thinking,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
I know that's a little different, y'all. Like, when I read that and was looking at the interviews and stuff, she tried to warn him. Like, she was like, "Oh, word, you gonna keep dropping these kids off here? And I told you I'm done raising kids. Watch me." Y'all, she left the kids from the ages of 1 to 13 home alone while she went on vacation in California. She told LaShanda, "Girl, you in charge. You got this." So, of course, when the social workers actually did their fucking jobs and showed up, yeah, grandma was gone. So they took the kids and put them in foster care, and Lashanda's aunt, Carolyn, she stepped up to take care of them. She took all six of them into her custody, and they lived with her and her two sons. Carolyn had that mindset of, family takes care of family. Now, she tried to keep them from seeing the kind of lives that their parents were living, but as Lashanda got older, she developed a lot of resentment towards her parents. Eventually, Carol got a job at a nursing home in Indiana, so they all ended up moving there. She's thinking, okay, a fresh start is what we all need. But Lashanda just was real resentful and problematic. Like, she was wilding all the way out, and her aunt wasn't having it. She would stay out all night, not tell her auntie where she was going. It was so much on her aunt Carolyn. LaShonda was always saying how she wanted to be with her parents. So Carolyn was like, all right, look, if your dad says that he wants you back, then you can go. And that's exactly what happened. LaShanda was 14 years old when she moved back to Cleveland. She was living back with her grandmother, but y'all, it was easier this time because it was just her. It wasn't all six kids. Grandma had her fun on vacation. She was like, "Yeah, baby, you can come on back. I can handle one kid, just not all six of y'all asses." I'm sorry. So her father had remarried and her mom was still out there in them streets. And Lashanda would be out looking for her, trying to save her. Now that Jimmy's life is more concrete, he's trying to make sure that Lashanda gets that structure that she needs. He's trying to show her that she couldn't live her life the way that she was. But she wasn't used to any type of structure. She was used to the chaos. She was used to the calamity. And within a year of her moving back to Cleveland, she was in and out of juvenile detention. And then she became pregnant with her first child. Y'all, she became a frequent runaway and had a revolving door with the police department. In one of her letters that she wrote to the former Cuyahoga County juvenile judge, John Gallagher, in October of 2000, she said, I can honestly say that at the rate I am going, I'll be dead before I'm 18. Damn. That is crazy to have that thought process at such a young age. Like, although she didn't die before she was 18, within 3 years, she did have three kids. And she wasn't fit to take care of any of them. Not to mention, she had a record like a mile long. She had offenses like stealing a pocket computer. What the fuck is a pocket computer? But she got caught stealing a pocket computer. She stole a pit bull. Y'all, who the hell steals a pit bull? Like, how do you steal a pit bull? I would be too scared to come near one of them things. But she did it. So while she was in the detention center, she met a social worker named Janie Whitehead, and Janie spent a lot of time with her. She really got to know her and realized that Lashanda didn't really know who she was. She never really got a handle on her background. She never really got to experience a normal childhood. She had three kids, and every time she was in the, detention center, she wasn't even 18. She was very boisterous, when she was in the detention center. A lot of people said that if she liked you, she was cool with you, but if she didn't, oh, you was gonna know about it. Now, she did have one thing that she really enjoyed, and that was writing. And y'all know I'm a best-selling author, so I love writing. It's such a stress reliever. So kudos to her for that. Lashanda would write about the pain that she had and what she wanted to do with her life and how she wanted to live a better life than what she already had. She once wrote, when I go home, I plan to enroll in Cuyahoga Community College for a year or two so I can spend time with my children and family. Then I plan to transfer out of state to Spelman or Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Now, of course, that's obviously not poetry or a story, but still very deep thoughts. And a lot of her relatives felt like her writing was so good that she could do something like that. But she was combative. Even if you tried to help her, it was like, well, why are you helping me? What is this for? What do you want from me? And I get it because, she's used to having to fight for what she wants. It's never just been given to her. After she turned 18, shit really didn't get any better. She turned to drugs and was doing cocaine and smoking weed and, was arrested several more times. She tried to keep a relationship with her siblings and her cousins back in Indiana. One of the last conversations that she had with her Aunt Carolyn was in 2008. And she told her auntie, I know if I would have listened to you, I would have been better off. I'm so sorry for not listening. And her auntie was very loving. She told her, baby, it's okay. It's not too late. I love you. You got plenty of time to get it together. But time ran out because after that phone conversation in August of 2008, Anthony and Lashanda crossed paths. Anthony was supposedly having a party with cocaine and alcohol, and Lashanda figured, well, why not? She goes with him into the house, and Anthony attacks her. I would like to think, though, that with Lashanda, because she was such a fighter, that she didn't just, willingly let him take her down. She strikes me as the type of person that she fought to the very end, and her relatives seem to think the same. Lashanda was only 25 years old when she disappeared. The next time she would be seen, she would be found in a room, rotting and decomposing with another body. All right, y'all. So we are going to go ahead and stop it right now because we are already over an hour in and I have barely started getting into the victims. There are quite a few of them. And I think thus far I've only covered what, two or three? So, we're going to go ahead and take a pause in tonight's episode and it will resume tomorrow. Don't worry, like less than 24 hours from now, you are going to get another episode. I promise. I'm not going to make y'all wait. It's already written. Y'all, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, it's already over an hour for this episode. So, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest in a couple of hours and release that part so that way you'll have multiple episodes same day. Okay. In the meantime, like I said, that's all for this episode. Let's just go ahead and call it part one. You can follow the show on the various streams. Look, just go to Google and type in the infamous ones, a true crime podcast. You'll see it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. On Instagram and TikTok, it's Infamous One Podcast with the number one, not spelled out. On X, formerly Twitter, it's Infamous One Pod. On Facebook, you can send a friend request to the page, The Infamous Ones, or, join the private discussion group, The Infamous Ones discussion group. Make sure that you answer the questions, or I am not letting your ass in. Okay? It's not rocket science, people. Just answer the questions to get in. Make sure to leave a review, leave a review, leave a review. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Send it, as a link. I don't care. Just make sure that you get that done. I am going to go ahead and say that is all for this episode. Thank y'all for tuning in. I love y'all. And yeah, by the time you listen to this one and you hit next episode should be ready. In less than 24 hours, probably about maybe 6 hours from now. Okay, y'all. I'll talk to y'all then. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.